Welcome to a series called He Trains My Hands for War, where we're going through the book of Joshua verse by verse, because Joshua is by far, the best example of what it means for an entire nation to be in the army of the living God and to be about his business and to follow his direction and be victorious time and time again whenever God's battle plan looks very different than any general that has ever walked this earth. So it's kind of going against what the normal world will tell you. It's going against normalcy. It's doing things that don't make sense to you because they are the divine nature. They're different than the worldly nature. And where we are in this book is they've just crossed over the Jordan River, and the men had to be circumcised, and then Joshua runs into God, but he's dressed for battle and he's got his sword drawn, and he declares that he is the commander of the Lord's army. And we'll just pick it up there. Joshua 6 verse 1. Now Jericho was secretly shut up because of the children of Israel. None went out, none came in. Now I want to remind you before we keep going that when you are in God's army, that he not only strengthens you, but he weakens the enemy, and he takes their courage away. He takes their heart away, and they just melt into fear. And it's a powerful weapon, your enemy being scared. So here's an example of that, and we'll keep going. And the Lord said to Joshua, "See, I have given Jericho into your hand, its king, and the mighty men of valor shall march around the city. All your men of war shall go all around the city once. This you shall do 6 days. 7 priests shall bear 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark. But the 7th day you shall march around the city 7 times, and the priests shall blow the trumpets. Then it shall come to pass, when they make a long blast at the ram's horn, and when they hear the sound of the trumpet, that all the people shall shout with a great shout, and the wall of the city will fall down flat, and the people shall go up every man straight before him." So Joshua, the son of Nun, called the priests and said to them, "Take up the ark of the covenant. Let 7 priests bear the 7 trumpets and ram's horns before the ark of the Lord." And he said to the people, "Proceed and march around the city, and let him who is armed advance before the ark of the Lord." All right, I'm going to pause real quick because there's a lot going on here. And this is a very familiar story that, the chances are you've heard. Because ultimately what God said, he said, take the men of war, not everybody, just the men of war and the priests and the ark, and you're going to march around the city once. You're going to do this every day for 6 days. Then on the 7th day, you're going to march around the city 7 times. And when you're finished, you're going to blow those trumpets, and then everybody's just going to start screaming. Now, and then the walls will fall down. Now, I want to remind you, this completely goes against any battle plan that a human has ever come up with, ever. Marching around the city every day at a designated time consistently for 6 days only makes you a target. So for sure, no general would come up with this plan. This is clearly from the commander of the Lord's army that this plan has come up with. And God told Joshua to do this. Now, we're going to get into kind of this whole event as this takes place. I just want to talk about the strangeness of it for a second. This particular request, again, is very peculiar and strange. It makes no sense to the world. If a general had his advisor come up to him and said, "Here's a plan," the general would say, "Are you drunk? This is not a good plan. This plan makes no sense, and the walls are just going to fall down. That's your plan. And we're going to be our targets for 7 days, and on the 7th day, we're going to be targets 7 times. This is not a good plan to the world, but it's the only plan to God. It's the only plan. There's no, "Well, what do you think, Joshua? Should we do this? Should we do that?" Here's the plan, Joshua. Now, I want you to notice what Joshua did after God told him what to do with Jericho. So Joshua, the son of Nun, called the priests and said to them, "Take up the ark of the covenant. Let 7 priests bear 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark." And he said to the people, "Proceed and march around the city, and let him who is armed advance before the ark of the Lord." So it was, when Joshua had spoken to the people, that the 7 priests bearing the 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the Lord advanced and blew the trumpets, and the ark of the covenant of the Lord followed them. The armed men went before the priests who blew the trumpets, and the rear guard came after the ark. while the priests continued blowing the trumpets. Now Joshua had commanded the people, saying, "You shall not shout or make any noise with your voice, nor shall any word proceed out of your mouth until the day I say to you, shout. Then you shall shout." So ultimately what Joshua did is he immediately obeyed and gave the orders that God gave him, and then the people immediately obeyed. Nobody questioned it. Nobody had any sort of, well, maybe we should do something different, or what do you mean march around the city? Like, they just did it. God said do it. Joshua said yes, and then he just did it. Joshua told the people to do it, and they just said yes, and they did it exactly as God said to. No, well, what do you mean? Or what, we live in a world that is very opinionated. We're like the opposite of these people in this moment. If there was a general who said, God told me to do this thing, most of that army would be questioning him, but they're not. They know what the plan is, and they're fully convinced God said to do it, we're doing it. This is why this is the best example, and another reason why this is the best example of who these people are in God in this time of warfare. It's an awesome example of it. And we've never seen anything like this before, because people will constantly, well, I want to go do this way, I want to do it that way, I want to do it this way. Or this seems like a bad idea, or let me tell you what my thoughts are. And then they'll try to, well, maybe we should overthrow this general. Maybe we should, man, this is stupid. I don't want to do this thing. I feel like we're going to get killed if we do this crazy thing. The world today couldn't handle this type of thing. So how does Joshua respond to this weird request on how to take Jericho? So Joshua, son of Nun, called the priests and said to them, "Take up the ark of the covenant. Let 7 priests bear 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of the Lord." People said, "Proceed and march around the city. Let him who is armed advance before the ark of the Lord." So it was, when Joshua had spoken to the people, that the 7 priests bearing the 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the Lord advanced and blew the trumpets. The ark of the covenant, the Lord followed them. The armed men went before the priests who blew the trumpet. The rear guard came after the ark, while the priests continued blowing the trumpet. Joshua had commanded the people, saying, "You shall not shout or make any noise with your voice, nor shall any word proceed out of your mouth until the day I say shout. Then you shall shout." So he had the ark of the Lord circle the city, going around at once. Then they came into the camp and lodged in the camp. Joshua arose early in the morning. The priests took up the ark of the Lord. This is how you succeed with God. And it's not just in warfare, it's in everything. You know how many people wake up and ask God what they want him to do today, and then listen and be obedient to that thing? Very few, very few. Here's a whole nation of people doing it. Not even questioning it, anything. They're just doing it. And they're not just doing something like walking around a city. They're walking around a city and putting their lives at risk and the life of their children and families. They're just doing it. This is an example that we have to follow, because we can't do this. We're not capable of this, because we're just too stubborn. We want what we want, and we think we know best, and we have to put in our 2 cents on everything. I guarantee if this was today, people would be Facebooking, "Oh, can you believe Joshua said what? This is crazy. This is crazy. We're all gonna," they'd be Facebook tweets. Nobody actually say anything. They'd just be throwing out complaints and grumbles. Any thoughts or insight, definitely put that below. If you like this video, click like and subscribe. Feel called to support this channel. The Patreon link is also below. But the most important part of the channel, we take prayer requests, and never hesitate to send it in. Thank you for watching this episode of God, Family, and Guns. As always, love God, love your family. Love you.